Most people will spend thousands of dollars upgrading their phone, their wardrobe, their car, or their home, but hesitate to invest in upgrading themselves. And yet, the greatest return you will ever get is not from the stock market or real estate or even business. It is from increasing your own knowledge, skills, and value. Because when you invest in yourself, no one can take that away from you. Today, I want to talk to you about why continuing education may be the single most important investment you will ever make, and why the people who continue learning are the people who continue growing, caring, and leading. Hello, everyone. I'm Belinda Ellsworth, and welcome to our show today. Each week, we create a theme that we can carry out throughout the week that is, I feel, important. And this week's theme is when you continue to learn, always remain a student. So when you continue to learn, you continue to grow. So let's dive in today and talk about investing in yourself and learning new things. So let's talk about what are some ways that you can continue to learn or remain a student. So here is a couple of things to think about. Degrees are not the finish line. For many people, maybe it's been a long time since you finished your degree or went to school. There is no one saying that you can't take a college course or a continuing education course. So look up some things or think about things that really always grabbed your attention. Was there something that you really enjoyed? If it's been a long time since you had a class with something, do that. You can also take a class that is really more like a hobby, whether that's a cooking class or an art class, or maybe something that you always wanted to learn, a music class of some course of some kind. And you're like, you know what? I always wanted to do that and I just never did. And so that could be something really fun, and that's going to stimulate your brain. When you're also learning, you're growing, but it's also keeping your brain stimulated. And the funniest thing happens that when you are in those situations, that when you start to stimulate your brain, what's amazing about that is you will start thinking of other ideas, either for your business or in life or whatever it is that you need to do. Like things start to happen, your brain starts to get activated, and then all of a sudden you've got more enthusiasm for other things that you are doing. The world is changing very, very fast, so it's good to keep up with what's going on, what's new, what are the trends, especially if you're in some kind of a business. You're going to want to know what are the latest trends and what is working. Business evolves constantly. And I would say that probably for me, and that's not for lack of really, really trying, but there were times where I thought, oh, I should add this to my business, or I probably should evolve and move into this direction. But things were going so well. And I was like, well, why do you want to mess with that apple cart, right? And so I just continued to go on. And in 2015, I had said, I'm going to move into this direction more while everything was going over good. That way it wouldn't be such a risk factor, right? And I could try building a new audience in another area. Well, then all of a sudden I got asked to write a book, and then I got super busy, and then my speaking business went crazy again. My consulting business just was off of the charts, and suddenly I didn't think about it anymore. And then when COVID happened and the pandemic happened, I wished more than anything that I had diversified a little bit more, because then it wouldn't have been like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do now? And if I had done that, if I had not just gone with the status quo and been happy with the way that things were, because business was evolving, if I were to tell you that that was sort of the beginning of the change. Like, yes, people were using technology, but like people were getting online stores. This is when, really like Shopify was becoming huge, and people were on Amazon and then getting their own stores on Amazon. And there was just all things, podcasts were taking off like crazy, and things were just happening and evolving. And you either got on it, and then a lot of people get to the game late, and then that space is kind of like everybody that got in early and that were early adopters, they made the most money in those particular arenas. Even with Facebook ads in the early days, people made so much money. You could get a 10x of return on investment. And then now you're lucky to get a 2, 1.49, 1.8, 2. But gosh, even when I got into the game, we were averaging around 4. But people earlier than that had been doing 8 and 10. And so if we could get a 4-time return on investment, it still was good. But it's now gotten to the point where it's barely 2. And so early adopters to Facebook made a ton of money. There is no doubt about it. So business evolves constantly. Stay with the trends. Be willing to adapt to what's working, what's new, instead of the status quo of the way you've always done it. Because eventually you're going to get to the game too late. And then you're going to wish, wow, I wish I would have got in when everybody was going, things were crazy, right? Absolutely. Technology changes constantly. Don't let that be a frustration for you. I let it be a frustration for me for a long time. But if you're constantly just learning, it's not going to be like when you're not learning and it changes, then you got to learn it on the fly. And it's very frustrating. But if you had already started to adopt some new things and learn some new things and kind of we're going with the flow, then it just evolves gradually instead of being like line in the sand. And now I got to figure all the stuff out. So that's why you want to keep learning and keep growing. Consumer behavior changes constantly. No trends. You should look at data on consumer buying. Like they have reports that come out all of the time. That doesn't mean that you can't go against that flow, but if you know what some trends are, maybe you can create some campaigns that lean into that. Absolutely. I helped my son out. He has a Medicare business, so he sells Medicare supplemental insurance. So if anybody is needing that or wants to know more about that, you can certainly comment below. We can get you some information. But he does such a good job. But he and I were talking on the phone just last night. And he said, do you know what the number one question that I get asked more than in the last 6 months, more than I've ever gotten asked ever before? And I said, he goes, just guess. And so I'm trying to guess, but I said, I don't know. Just tell me. And he said, the number one question I'm getting is people are calling me, especially women, and saying, will this Medicare program cover GLP-1s? And I was like, oh my gosh, you're kidding. He's like, no. And so then I got to explain, well, it depends on certain things, and it depends on if there's a medical issue. And the most common one is like you're pre-diabetic or you do have type 2 diabetes. And so then he was just answering all these questions, but he said, that's the number one question. Like almost every call I ended up getting. So he's like, if you were to talk about it for me, that would be something that you could certainly share with people if they're wanting to know more information about that. I was like, okay, but that was a trend. So for him, he needs to lean in and he needs to be able to mention that or talk about it. He needs to address it. If that's the number one question he's getting, then you need to be learning that, and then you need to be talking about it. So when you learn certain trends, I remember, so this is going back to 2008. And in 2008, I'm just going to tell you, there were not a lot of automatic programs like there is today. There is a ton of automatic programs like Apple Pay, Sezzle, Shop Pay. Like there's several programs now where you can divide your payment. You just click and it's automated. But in 2008, my friends, I'm going to tell you that there really wasn't, okay? There was not all of these make it easy programs. And so I just made a decision to say, the economy is doing really rough. We are in a huge recession and housing crisis, and people were it was bad. And a lot of people weren't selling their products, like back of the room sales. And that was where I made a huge amount of money. So I was like, what am I going to do? I've got to allow these people to split their payments. So if it was below like $150, I let people split it in half. And if it was over $150 or $200, I forget now what my mark was. I think it was 200. Then I would let them split it into 3 payments, 3 1-month payments. And so we made a box and they could just check. And so we literally had to run those credit cards. So when people chose to do a split payment, we put them in a file, and then each of those months we ran their card on that date. And I had my team here, and that was just an extra little bit of work that we had to do. But guess what? Our sales never dropped. Not even a little bit. They didn't drop at all. And so we had to know that's a trend right now. Is I saw people are not buying as much in the back of the room. I went to one event and my sales were lower on one event. And people were saying, yeah, I think right now I got to hold off, or I can't afford it. And I just started saying, what if we made it easy? What if we did a split your payment, like a pay plan for you? Would that make it better? Oh, I could do it then. And so that's what we did. And you've got to be ready for that. And that's learning what consumers' buying habits are now. Most of these platforms actually offer that as an option because it works. It absolutely works. So another thing to think about is what kinds of things can you learn? So you can learn a new business strategy. So there's all kinds of courses that you can take. That's what's so great about YouTube. I mean, here we are, but you can literally Google anything and you will get you'll get a feed of learning videos that will come up on that subject. Recently my cholesterol numbers were a little bit high. My doctor, of course, was just like, let's put you on medication. And I'm like, not before I take a deep dive on this. And so learning what my numbers really meant, I took a deep dive on that. Like, is it really high? What does it really mean? Because my doctor didn't break it down and of all the different things. And then the next one was, what are some natural ways that I can get this lowered myself? And so I just was Googling all kinds of things, not Googling, but going on YouTube and doing searches on all sorts of things. And just now I get fed things on it. Like every single day I'm getting a video pop up. And most of them, like, there's some of the same things, but every now and again in a day, I'll go, oh, that looks new and interesting. Let's see what they have to say. Sometimes it's the same exact thing that another doctor said. But then one time I'll learn like one little tidbit to add to my little routine. What the heck? Because I'm willing to go all in and try whatever it is I need to do if I can fix this naturally, because I don't want to get on any medication. I am currently off of every single medication. And I'm so happy about that. Like, I don't want to start a new one if I don't have to. So I want to educate myself as much as I humanly possibly can. There's all kinds of things in technology, like for business, there's learning how to build a list. There's learning how to do a lead magnet. There's learning how to do ads. There's learning how to do things on your phone. There's learning Canva. Like the list goes on and on of things that you could learn to do better in your business. Reinventing yourself professionally. Maybe it is time, like for me, I'm at a point in my life where I had a business for 30 years. And now I'm ready to sell that business, and I am ready to maybe do something completely different. And sometimes I sit and think, well, what skills do I have? I've actually been asked that. What skills do you have? And I think, gosh, outside of what I did, of what my job title was, like, what are my skills? And so what kinds of jobs lean into those skills? So now I've started making like little lists. And I just think this is a fun time in my life where I could go try that. I could go try something completely new. Maybe I could go work for somebody completely different and take my skill sets with me and do something completely new and different. So the other thing is learning is fun. I think that if you would that's how, I guess I'm so curious about all kinds of things, that I just find learning to be so much fun. And it keeps me sharp. It keeps my memory sharp. It keeps me on my toes. It gives me knowledge. It helps me in conversations with people. I don't feel like I'm not relevant to what's happening in the world. I know what's happening. I know what trends are. I know what's going on in politics. So I think it's good to be in the know. You don't need to become obsessed about anything, but you certainly can be curious, you can be knowledgeable, and knowledge is power. That when you become really knowledgeable, you become empowered. Empowered to be able to share, to give, to make a difference, to help someone. I don't know, there's just so much, so much. So I hope that you've enjoyed these 3 videos that we've done on remaining a student, learning is growing, and what kinds of things can you do to keep your curiosity level alive and well so that you can continue to lead a very fun and successful and energetic life. So thanks everyone for tuning in. Please like or subscribe. And if you heard something that you really enjoyed today, please share this with someone that you care about. Thanks so much, everyone, and we will see you next week with a brand new theme.